Alright, so I'm gonna be laying around watching Malice Miser's Bara no Konrei, which is a promotional DVD slash movie um, of containing songs of their final album, Bara no Seido, which was released in 2000. Malice Miser is a Visual Kei group formed in the very early 90s, who later went to gain a lot of success in the later um, era as Visual Kei started to taper off during this explosive boom of the 90s. They ended up disbanding after releasing this, well, not immediately after, like in 2001, so a couple months after releasing their final album. Um, but the group is mostly known as one of the more popular groups. They're known for their theatrics. All Visual Kei bands generally have that level of theatrical flair to them in their costumes. It's Visual Kei after all. The visual aspect is half the fun. But Malice Miser was one of the groups who definitely pushed the limits to the type of things that they would do on stage. That it was more of a watching an interesting play, or um, the cast acting out certain events and adding drama and certain flair with a lot of cool things happening on stage. Like watch some of their performances and you'll see what I mean. Um, so they definitely took it to that level there. The group being uh, spearheaded by or at least their two most popular members. At a certain point were Mana and Gakt. Gakt would later leave the group, but he was their vocalist for a while. Gakt being um, someone who would later go on to have successful solo music career, and then uh, a popular TV personality, or Mana being one of the progenitors of the Gothical Lita fashion style, uh, pioneering it in the early days and having a label. There was a Gothic Lolita and Bible magazine that prominently featured him as a model. I think that was even his magazine. So you look back at like where the heck does this goth loli stuff come from? You could look back at Mana. It was one of the most popular members within Visual Kei, I think in general, called endearingly by fans Mana-sama. Mana-sama Kyomo Utsukushi. Um, but anyways, specifically about the album. Let's get I mean, I want to kind of get into this. I don't want to read the Wikipedia page here or anything. Bara no Seido was a departure from their previous work. A lot of the stuff that they did previously was like rock and pop oriented, which was typical of Visual Kei at the time, right? This one was more gothic influenced. It definitely had that going for it, but it was taking a lot of influence from like orchestral, symphonic metal, um, but largely being very light on the guitar work. I think there's only like a couple tracks in here with guitars. It's a lot of orchestral and a lot of symphonic elements, drawing a lot of influence from Baroque music. Um, but yeah, the album title literally meaning Church of Roses or Sanctuary of Roses came out in 2000, like I said. They released two things along with it. One of them was a promotional DVD from their performances on stage, and the second one is the one I'm going to be covering, which is Bara no Konrei. That's the one like I said, I'm going to be focusing on. Yeah, I got some dark wave stuff, got some gothic. Yeah, like I said, it was partially fueled by feelings that the group felt after the passing of their drummer Kami. Uh, uh, yeah, it said it could be argued that the funeral goth element is present. Um, yeah, it's a pretty good album. Uh, I personally think that like watching the movie and getting like their true vision, because to me it sounds like a soundtrack, right? Like there's a lot of songs that are somewhat that don't really hold up well listening to it on its own, but like if you listen to it with the context that it's meant to be played during a theatrical performance, it gives it a little bit more context. So that's why I'm curious to see what the movie actually contains. I did a little bit of skimming through it. It seems like B movie. It's a bit light on production, but I'm mostly curious about seeing the talent of acting within the band members. That, of course, they're musicians first and foremost, but being a visual K group who focuses a lot on their stage performance, I'm interested to see on how they actually do in like a pure movie type setting, right? Uh, yeah, we got the members here. We're probably gonna see them in the movie. I'm not super familiar with them. I only kind of know Mana for obvious reasons, but we have Mana, Kozi, Yuki, Shu, and Klaha, along with some guest vocalists here listed. And of course, we can't forget Kami, who is the eternal blood relative, and that's how they credit him. All releases after his passing, he is put onto them as the eternal blood relative to pay homage to him, which I think is kind of cool. Last little note I'm gonna make: the album cover. Right, here's the album cover. It's really small, but what is actually here? It's a real location. It is the St. Vitus Cathedral. Where is it? In Prague? Because like I was doing some unrelated searching, and I was like, I want to find a higher res image of the album cover. So I was looking, and like you see it, it's right here. I bet there's a better picture. Yeah, like this one right here. You can clearly tell. Oh, same place, right? Pretty similar. I've also seen this album likened to stuff like Castlevania with the gothic aesthetic. That was a really random non sequitur. I don't know why I just brought that up, but anyways, I'm going to be watching this. I guess just bear in mind that I'm not a Malice Miser expert. With all the members and the lore, and then same thing goes for like Visual K. That like I'm kind of getting more into it. I've been familiar with Visual K and listening to the music for a while, but this is like I'm giving it my full attention, and I'm gonna see what this has in mind, or this has in store for me. So the movie, like I said, seems to be pretty light on production. Not sure exactly what to expect there. Hopefully it's a good kind of cheese, or at least you see the effort that they're putting in. And also, I don't know if there's dialogue. So we got it. Let me full screen. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Well, there's subtitle tracks on here. I don't know what they do. Oh. I guess I should put on my headphones. Let me unplug that. Let's get started, shall we? Alright, another random aside, right? Here is the screen. It has these like little things where it comes with the narration, but I want to bring up is, like, hopefully someone listening to this, maybe, possibly, I'm taking a shot in the dark here, who is familiar with Japanese language and perhaps Japanese mythology and folklore, can give insight to the difference between banpaya and kyuketsuki, which both mean the same thing in Japanese. A banpaya being the Japanese way of saying vampire, kyuketsuki being the kanji version, which means blood-sucking demon. I remember asking this because I was reading the Monogatari light novels at the time, and the way they would explain vampire, and I think I was watching the anime as well, that they would use kyuketsuki as opposed to like vampire and stuff. So I asked my Japanese professor in university. I was just like, I wonder if maybe he knows if there is a different implication between using banpaya and kyuketsuki. My personal theory is that when referring to a vampire in a Japanese media, using kyuketsuki implies that it's a vampire of Japanese origin, more so like a vampire within Japan that was born in Japan, whereas banpaya would be like Castlevania. Like I haven't read the text in the Castlevania games, but perhaps they translate the character who is a vampire, or if there are any vampires in the game, which I'm not even 100% sure, but like European set games and stories will most likely have Banpaya, whereas something like Monogatari, where the character Araragi is a Japanese high school student, will be called Kyuketsuki. So I think there might be some sort of implied difference between the two, but I've never been able to find a concrete, uh, I guess, concrete evidence to support my theory. And like even after asking my professor, he wasn't even familiar with what I was talking about. Like he just knew that there was two ways to say it, but he didn't think that there was some sort of difference between the two, that they could be used interchangeably. But the way I had personally seen it, led me to believe otherwise. And I ended up just explaining what I theorized, and he thought that was an interesting take, I guess. Maybe someone could provide insight, or I don't know, just a random thought I had. Mana-sama, kyo mo utsukushii. I'm just thinking, like, all these gaijin they got, because there's a significant amount of Western actors. Like, I just imagine the conversation of getting these people on board for the for this film, just being like, we want you to be a part of this vampire promotional video for a Visual K album. And they're like, what the fuck is Visual K? Alright, so we finally hit the title screen, which reads Exchange Promises at Midnight, Bridal of Rose, which is the translation of it. Let's see if I can read it in Japanese. It would be Mayonaka ni. I can't read it. The kanji something washita yakusoku Bara no Konrei. But anyways, the point is, we've gotten to this point, and we've realized that Parse's kanji reading is sorely lacking, but also a bit of an update on the story, right? So what's happened thus far is the movie opened up with some sort of exorcism, where there was a dude, and clearly his lover was the one who was being exorcised, and she was turning into a vampire and was like tied to the bed and shit, and they had the priest there, and it clearly didn't work. Suddenly a vampire dude just appears and is like, he just materializes out of somewhere. The guy whose girlfriend is being exorcised like pulls out his gun, shoots him, but since he's a vampire, it doesn't affect him, so he just like teleports behind everybody and kills the people in the room, and then unties the girl with his mind, and then the boyfriend, I'm assuming a boyfriend or a lover or whatever, the original dude, goes over. I think he like tries to stab her or something. Like, if you can't have her, if I can't have her, no one can. And then after the whole event, we just see her like leaning up against the bed. So I'm not sure what that was even going on. Like, the vampire tried to claim a victim, or maybe went to go get her. Because according to the lore that I'm familiar with, like a vampire, they can turn them into like a mindless slave, like a ghoul, or they could turn them into like a familiar, like also another vampire. The details are a bit fuzzy, but the point is that a vampire turned this girl into another vampire with the intention to do so. So they wanted to have some use for it. If they just wanted to suck their blood or turn them into some mindless ghoul, they would have done just that. So there might be some reasoning here. There's gonna be some love triangle. We'd see a lot of vampires sucking blood, and then being remorseful for doing so, like crying on the bedside as some girl just lays there, completely sucked dry. And then Mana-sama is looking Pretty beautiful as expected. I wonder how he's gonna play into it. So let's see what happens. Also, the effects are brilliant. They're brilliant. Oh shit! It's my favorite song from the album. What's it called? I don't. Maybe they're not even playing them in order. I think this is my favorite song. It would make sense that they would play everything in order. I think I was just mistaken. But my favorite song on the topic of that is... Where is it? Crap. Chika Sui Miyaku no Meiro, track number 7. That track is good. And so far there hasn't been any dialogue whatsoever. It's just been narration when applicable. And then the acting. The acting so far seems pretty decent. Like, it's nothing that's going to blow my mind, but from what I've seen, it's a step above... Oh, Mana-sama is a nun. But it's a step above, like, B-tier schlock. It's definitely, like, expressing some familiarity with the craft, I guess. There was a tit. I saw a tit, and I was not expecting to see one in the movie. Like, that was... Like, I expected it to be some more very PG, like a music video, but I guess not. So, I'm not gonna lie, some of the costumes look kind of goofy. Like, this guy who plays the Earl of Dracula, like, his hair looks really bad. Like, it looks worse than an actual wig. It looks really cheap. In the one, like you kind of see right there. And then, the cape. The cape for one of the first vampires who appeared, it looks like one that I wore for Halloween, like, when I was a kid. So, like, some of them are good, some of them just aren't. Like, Mana's nun costume was good. It was convincing. And, like, Klaha's normal costume right there looks fine. And all the makeup looks like typical VK type stuff. Like, it's good. But some, like I said, it's kind of weird. Dude, why the fuck? There's like some orgy going on, dude. What the heck? And there was this one topless woman just like crucified. This looks clearly like a play. I think it's literally a play that the people are watching. Like, I'm watching people watching a play. That was kind of unusual, but let's see where it goes. Oh, there's Mana. There's some sort of masked gathering. Dude, I always thought that would be really fucking cool. Like, going to an event like that and everybody has a mask like that, like a masquerade. That dude's like Slipknot. Dude, I'm gonna say this now, but I'm probably gonna say it like 10 other times throughout the watching of this. But like, Mana looks so hot, dude. Like, holy crap, man. So elegant, so pretty. Very utsukushi, making me have weird thoughts. But anyways, we're gonna continue on. They just sacrificed some lady, and Mana-sama's drinking the lady's blood. So in their exchange, she goes on about confessing that she's dreaming of being unfaithful, and then what does Mana respond? Mana's like, just simply states, "Pray to God," like. Essentially, some lady walks in that she's worried about her faithfulness, and then she's like, "Repent, sinner," refuses to elaborate. Still don't entirely know why Klaha is even at that mansion with the Earl of Dracula. Like, it seemed like they wanted to do some sort of business or something, but I'm not exactly sure what that is. And apparently he's turning into a vampire. I'm curious as to why all these vampires are... There it is, never mind. They answered my question. Why does everybody want her? But it's because she's a virgin. It's because she's a virgin, that's all it is. Also, this is at least the third time, or maybe even fourth time, someone has been crucified in this movie. Okay, I appreciate that the movie has English subtitles, but honestly, it's making it more difficult to understand what's going on by trying to read them, because it's written in somewhat broken English that you get the general idea, but you have to kind of piece things together, and it's kind of weird. I would have preferred them to have Japanese narration with Japanese subtitles. But honestly, dude, like, the visual effects in this movie are kind of cheesy, but it certainly has stylistic flair. Like, this movie has that going for it. And luckily, it's got Bara no Seido as the soundtrack, so it sounds fantastic. I think the entire film should have been done with this, like, red light instead of the yellow, because a lot of it has that, like, a yellow tint to it, which makes it seem comfy, but at the same time it detracts from the style and aesthetic of the movie. That, like, this red one is definitely more, like, edgy, whereas the other one is, like I said, comfier. This one would have leaned more into that side of it. Dude, this guy evaporated a cross with his mind. Alright, I really don't know what happened. Like, there was this encounter where the two vampires, they battle. And I was under the assumption that Klaha was in allegiance with the one dude with, like, that, I don't even know how you say it, but he's got, like, the shorter hair one. But, like, they do battle, and then the vampire I assume that he was in allegiance with just commits seppuku off to the side, and they weren't even done with the battle with the other guy, the elder vampire with long hair with the cheesy wig, and then after that he asks Klaha to finish him off, essentially, and then the other vampire just disappears. Dude, I love how Klaha just has, like, a cross necklace on, but that cross is like the ones that you would put on, like, on the wall of your house or in, like, a room, but he just has it on a necklace. Okay, I just realized, after 20-something years of my life, that I'm more retarded than I give myself credit for. I accidentally was watching the movie in Russian, which is interesting that they have dual audio tracks on here. One of them is just a standard one, the other one is with, like, Russian voiceovers, which reads the narration in Russian. I just checked right now, and the original audio track does not have any narration over it, it seems. So it, like, while I was saying that, yeah, there was voices doing that, it's not like the original audio track has Japanese voices anyways. Okay, so I finished watching the movie Bara no Konrei, the Malice Miser film, for their album Bara no Seido. So I guess I guess I should do my thoughts about it or something like that. I guess I'm gonna start with, like, what I expected and what I actually got. Prior to going into watching this movie, I was expecting, like, a string of music videos put together to the theme of their album, sort of like a promotional piece. I was expecting a lot of B-movie type special effects, acting. I expected some goofy stuff, a non-coherent storyline, and mostly just a focus on the music. What I ended up actually getting was not so much a string of music videos, but more so like an actual narrative that they were trying to weave. However, it was somewhat incoherent in my understanding of it. Like, I sort of got the picture and what they were going for, but a lot of the scenes didn't flow that well together. There was a bit of confusing bits where, like, there would be a lot of repeated events happening. For example, when the fiance was like especially with, like, names and stuff, but, like, when the girl was, like, having dreams repeatedly about the same dude, and, you know, like, it was like, oh, it's actually happening, wait, no, it isn't, and then it happens, like, 3 times, and then there was the same dude, the vampire. I'm gonna assume that he was the Earl of Dracula, the long hair fellow. he was actually one of the other vampires, like the first vampire that appeared. But when we see him as a real Dracula, it seems like a completely different person because he looks older. But later on in the movie, we see after he drinks blood that he gets younger and is the same person. So it was kind of, there's like some weird bits right there that don't really flow that well together. Maybe I'm assuming that's mostly just me, though I feel like they could have done a little bit better explaining things. Maybe adding a little bit more text. The English translation definitely needs a lot of work. That's all I'm gonna say. Um, but I mean, like the narrative is there. What I'm mostly interested in is knowing, like, I might have to do a little bit of research on this myself, but I'm assuming that when they were in creating the album Bara no Seido, it started with some sort of concept, right? That they wanted to do something with this album to tell a grander narrative. And I wonder if this is what they had in mind, or at least it was similar. I'm sure due to limitations, things were changed, right? The scope of the project was likely brought down due to budget constraints and just general, like, we can't do this and that. But, like, even prior to watching this, I knew it was going to be about vampires, man. I knew it was going to be about a tragic romance. I could have told you that. But that's not the reason why I watched it. I watched it because I was curious as to how it was going to play out, right? And listening to the album, and then, like, I've listened to this album multiple times prior to watching this movie, and it went really well with this. Like, there was some tracks that I felt that were able to be applied to the scenes that were happening really well. Other ones just kind of happened and they were just background noise. So that's why I'm saying, like, I feel that there was definitely some things changed in between the conceptualization of the original album and the actual planning of the movie. I probably should read the lyrics for the album. I've read, like I said, I read the lyrics for a couple of the songs that I enjoy, but I haven't done a deep dive and figured out the whole narrative of the album, which I probably should do. The acting, I think, was pretty decent. I feel like some of the theatrics that you would see on stage were a bit better, because here it was more, like, the character, the people were more isolated, so, and on, like, a confined stage, and not during performance. So, like, some of the actors were doing a good job, and some of them were, like, kind of all right. But I think it came together fairly well. Definitely better than I thought. I thought it was going to be way more cheesy. The visual effects definitely were cheesy, but there was a certain charm to it, I guess. Like, the entire thing had this really low budget kind of flair to it that I didn't really expect, because I thought, Malice Miser was a, yeah, I mean, it was fine. It was fine. Yeah, I mean, like, overall, I think this was a really interesting watch. Definitely more in line with what I expected than I thought it was gonna be, but it did surprise me in certain ways, and there was an interesting narrative to try to keep track of, to a certain extent. But yeah, I guess, like, I'll close off with my overall thoughts about the entire project as a whole. So, like, Bara no Seido is an album that's held in high regard within what I assume to be the greater Visual Kei fan base, because, like, on Rate Your Music, for example, Bara no Seido is one of the highest rated Visual Kei albums on the site, and I feel like that's for good reason, but I don't think it's very indicative of the genre. And it's not really a genre, it's more of a movement or a style. But while it isn't indicative, it certainly is a highlight of a certain aspect to the movement, which is the theatrical bit. And this all culminates into this movie, Bara no Konrei, right? The album is cool, though. The album is really fucking sick. Because, like, in context, Malice Miser was a group that sort of revolutionized Visual Kei during their run. Like they started off doing what was pretty standard for standard fare visual kei stuff, but they eventually evolved into doing more, I guess, conceptual work, or more pushing the boundaries of what they consider to be visual kei. And Bara no Seido is the ultimate form of that. It's epic. There's really no other way to describe it. It's an epic album that's a soundtrack to what could be like exactly this movie, but like it has a very cool it has a cool edge to it. It's got this gothic rock symphonic metal sort of spin to it, but it also has a lot of classical elements. And like, to go out with a bang like that, like to be making like rock anthems and stuff in more standard visual kei, and then dropping Bara no Seido was like a really cool mic drop for the group. And we never really saw something else like that, I guess, where a group went full throttle into their vision like that. Like, I'm not super familiar with visual kei, like I said, but it's certainly an anomaly within the movement of what they did with this album. And it's definitely not perfect. That's what I'm saying. It's definitely not perfect. There are some tracks that I think are much weaker than the others. So a lot of the instrumentation isn't that good. Some of the mixing is horrendous as well. But like, taking it, like, you listen to it like that and you take each track as it is, and it doesn't seem that special. But like, taking a step back from it and seeing, like, when I look at the entire project as a whole, and then their vision, their leading up to it, the theatrics that they were employing, the various members, the things that they were going through, the narrative and the history of the group with like losing their drummer, and the evolution of the musicians who stuck with the group. Like, it's a really fascinating bookend to the band that was Malice Miser. Like I said, it's a really cool mic drop moment for the group. Unfortunately, they didn't continue doing music. However, members like Gacht went on to do, well, he wasn't in this obviously, but like, he was a vocalist for Malice Miser at one point. He went to do his own solo career. We got Mana here, who went to form the band. I believe it's Mon Demois, I think is how you pronounce it, or Moi Demois, something like that, which is another visual kei group, but did a bit more symphonic metal type things. But yeah, I think it's really cool. Like, it's like the logical extreme to their aesthetic, and it's leaning fully into the gothic side of visual kei, which is really cool. It's really cool. Like, it's totally gothic Lolita core, and I love it. But anyways, Bara no Konrei, it was alright. Like, I like it more with enjoying it within the context of the album. If it didn't have the music from Malice Miser, it wouldn't be half as good. I don't think it would even be worth watching. But since it did have that, and the novelty of seeing the band members play out in what is essentially a feature-length film, it's only like 120 minutes, give or take a little bit. But as opposed to like their typical stage performances, or like just typical musician stuff, it's something else entirely. Though I do know that a lot of visual kei groups put out like VHS tapes and DVDs and stuff. I haven't watched that much of it. I would assume most of them would be like music videos and like live performances and stuff. I don't know, maybe someone else did a full-length movie, and if they did, I'll probably watch it as well, because it's kind of cool. Like, it's a super niche thing that like these visual kei people were making movies and shit. But yeah, Bara no Seido is a good visual kei album. I like it. It's like a really cool aesthetic. It's like, when I think of gothic Lolita stuff, that's the album that I think of, and it makes me want to LARP as a vampire more than it should. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it at that. This movie is available on YouTube. I was watching the DVD thing of it. I don't have a DVD of it, but I have the DVD, files there on my computer. But yeah, it's on YouTube if you want. I would recommend listening to the album first and then watching the movie. But if you're already familiar with Visual Kei and or Malice Miser, then definitely probably give this a watch. It was cool. Like, you don't see this. Like, that's the thing. Like, you don't see people put out a fucking movie when they drop an album. But these guys did it. These guys, absolute mad lads, did it. And I think they should be commended for their work. Yeah, I guess that's about it. It's getting late. I should really head off to bed. This is Pars signing off.